In the shadowed hills of Gévaudan, they said the night itself grew teeth. Between 1764 and 1767, a terror stalked the French countryside, a creature so cunning, so merciless, that hundreds whispered it was no ordinary wolf at all. Some swore it was a punishment from God, others a loup-garou, a werewolf. Tonight, you have been invited to hear this tale as few have heard it before. Step quietly into the Ink and Lantern Society, where such chronicles are kept, where the forests themselves whisper their secrets to those who listen. Here, in the gentle glow of candlelight, we preserve the stories that history both recorded and feared to remember. What the people of Gévaudan witnessed was written in blood and legend alike. And tonight, as the shadows gather, we open that ledger together. Subscribe to join our circle of keepers and let us know in the comments which shadowed tales draw you deeper into the past. Now, breathe slowly. Let the world beyond fade. The story of Gévaudan begins. The year was 1764. In the highlands of Gévaudan, far from the glittering court of Versailles, life moved to the quiet rhythm of the land. Shepherds tended their flocks across rolling pastures. Peasants worked their fields beneath low grey skies, and the forests pressed close, vast, shadow-draped, and full of ancient silence. Yet even in so remote a province the people were not strangers to fear, for wolves had long haunted these hills, their cries drifting across the valleys on winter nights. But this was something different. Whispers began to stir in the villages, murmurs of a creature larger than any wolf, its coat streaked with fire, its eyes glinting red at dusk. Some said it moved with unnatural cunning, circling its prey before striking swift and merciless. Others swore it bore the strength of a lion, its chest broad, its jaws unyielding. At first these were only tales traded by firelight, but as spring turned to summer the rumours deepened. Shepherds spoke of vanished sheep. Travellers whispered of shapes moving in the fog. And in the heart of Gévaudan, a shadow began to grow. A shadow that soon would claim its first victim. On the 30th of June, 1764, the whispers of Gévaudan found their first echo in death. Near the village of Les Hubacs, a young shepherdess named Jeanne Boulet, only 14 years old, was tending her flock. The hills that day were quiet, the sheep grazing in calm silence. But by dusk, the silence was broken. Her body was discovered soon after, torn and brutalized. Witnesses said the attack bore the marks of a wolf, yet unlike any wolf they had known. Jeanne was said to have been struck at the throat, her small frame powerless before the beast's ferocity. Word travelled swiftly, carried by riders and rumour, and with it came dread. This was no mere wolf, but a monster, a scourge sent to haunt the land. Some whispered it was a loup-garou, a werewolf, the old curse reborn. Jeanne's death did not stand alone. Within weeks, others fell. Men, women, children. The beast showed no mercy. Fields once filled with laughter and song now echoed with the cries of mourning. The hills of Gévaudan, once only shadowed by wolves, were now darkened by something far more terrible. And so it was said. The beast had claimed its first blood. Jeanne Boulet's death was only the beginning. In the weeks that followed, The beast struck again and again, leaving a trail of grief that wound through villages and parishes. In August, a 12-year-old girl was found lifeless near her flock, her throat torn in the same dreadful manner. In September, a young boy disappeared while tending cattle. His body discovered days later in the woods. Even soldiers armed and vigilant fell victim. One patrol reported an attack that left a comrade dragged into the forest, never to return. Each name, each parish record told the same story. By the close of 1764, more than 30 victims were counted. By the end of the following year, the toll had climbed past 60. Men, women, children, none were spared. The Beast of Gévaudan had become not merely a rumour, but a grim litany etched into the land itself. After Jeanne Boulet's death, Gévaudan was never the same. The summer of 1764 bled into autumn, and with it came more victims. Shepherds vanished upon the hillsides. Woodcutters were found lifeless at the edges of the forest. Children, once sent to gather berries or watch the flocks, did not return home. By year's end, a dozen lives had been claimed. Within months, more than 30. And soon the number would rise beyond reckoning. The attacks were unlike any the province had known. Wolves were feared, yes, but wolves rarely sought human prey with such relentless hunger. This creature hunted in broad daylight, striking at women and children, dragging bodies away into the trees. The peasants whispered that the very land had turned against them, that no field, no valley, no hearth was safe. Fear spread faster than the beast itself. Flocks were abandoned, fields lay untended. At dusk, doors were barred and shutters fastened. The tolling of church bells became less a call to prayer than a dirge for the fallen. By winter, Gévaudan was not merely a province. It was a battlefield between man and shadow. And the shadow was winning. What was this creature that plagued Gévaudan? Survivors and witnesses left descriptions, each more unsettling than the last. Some swore it was the size of a calf, its body thick and powerful. Others said its coat was red or russet, with a black streak running the length of its back. Its tail ended in a tuft, striking like a whip. The beast's chest, they said, was broad like a lion's. Its jaws were immense, able to crush bone with ease. Some spoke of ears pointed like a wolf's, yet larger, more upright. What chilled the villagers most was not only its form, but its cunning. The beast was said to circle its prey, to wait, to watch. It struck not from hunger, but from something deeper, something cruel. A farmer's musket might wound it, but it would rise again, shake the shot from its hide, and vanish into the trees. No two accounts were entirely the same, yet together they painted a portrait not of nature, but of nightmare. A creature both familiar and otherworldly, a wolf that was not a wolf. And in every description, one detail returned again and again: its eyes. They glowed, villagers whispered, red as embers in the dusk. Not all who faced the beast perished. Some lived to tell what they had seen, and their voices deepened the mystery. One young shepherd described a creature broad as a calf, its hide coarse, its tail striking like a whip. Another, a farmer's wife, swore its chest was wide and its movements cunning, as though it circled her before leaping to attack. But the most enduring account belongs to Marie-Jeanne Vallée, later remembered as the Maid of Gévaudan. In August of 1765, as she crossed a river near Paulhac, the beast lunged at her. Armed only with a simple spear, she thrust upward in desperate defense, wounding the creature. The beast fled, leaving her bloodied but alive. Vallée's courage echoed across the province. Some called her blessed, others claimed her strike proved the beast could bleed. Her survival became a beacon in the shadow, proof that perhaps the terror could be faced. As the death toll mounted, the people of Gévaudan turned not only to hunters, but to heaven. From the pulpits of small stone churches, priests thundered that the beast was no common animal. It was, they warned, a scourge permitted by God, a punishment for the sins of the land. Villagers were urged to pray, to fast, to confess their faults, lest the monster's shadow lengthen further. But prayers did not halt the attacks. The dead continued to mount, their names carried from parish to parish. And soon the whispers of Gévaudan reached the gilded halls of Versailles. Word of the beast unsettled even King Louis XV. For if a creature could defy the muskets of peasants and soldiers alike, what did it say of his power as guardian of the realm? To ignore it was to invite scorn. To conquer it was to reclaim glory. Thus, the king dispatched his royal huntsmen, seasoned trackers and gunners, to bring the beast to heel. For the matter of Gévaudan was no longer merely provincial. It had become a question of France's honour. In the spring of 1765, the king's men arrived in Gévaudan. First came Captain Duhamel, leading a company of dragoons, soldiers trained for war, not wolves. They scoured the forests with muskets and bayonets, their bright uniforms startling the peasants as much as the beast they sought to kill. Yet still, the monster struck. Frustrated, Louis XV dispatched an even greater force, his royal gun-bearer, François Antoine, and a company of professional wolf hunters. These were men who had spent their lives tracking predators, skilled in patience and pursuit. They marched into the hills with fanfare, their presence a promise that the crown would not be shamed by a single beast. But the Beast of Gévaudan proved more cunning than any wolf. It slipped through cordons, vanished into fog, and reappeared miles away. Traps were sprung, shots fired, yet the killings continued. Some peasants whispered that the creature laughed at musket fire, rising after every wound. The land became a theatre of failure. Each hunt ended the same way. Silence in the trees, another victim in the fields, another rumour spreading through the villages. And the legend grew larger than the hunt itself. For if the king's own hunters could not prevail, then surely this was no creature of flesh and blood. For centuries, France had lived in the shadow of the Loup-Garou, the werewolf. In the villages of Burgundy, Lorraine, and the Auvergne, tales were told of men who slipped into wolf shape under the devil's hand, of sinners cursed to prowl the night in fur and fang. Not so long ago, such stories had filled courtrooms as well as hearths, for men and women had been tried and burned as werewolves within living memory. So when the Beast of Gévaudan struck, the people already knew its name. It was not a wolf, they said, nor even a pack of them. It was the Loup-Garou, returned in the flesh, a punishment sent for the sins of the people. Some whispered that it walked upright when the moon was high, others that it bore the face of a man in the moment before it struck. Priests warned their flocks to repent, to fast, to pray against the devil's curse. Families huddled behind locked shutters, clutching rosaries, listening for the howl in the distance. In their hearts, many believed the beast could not be killed by musket or blade, for it was no creature of the natural world at all. The hunts had failed, the soldiers had failed, and so Gévaudan turned to its older, deeper stories, the tales of the Loup-Garou, to explain the shadow that haunted their hills. When the people of Gévaudan named the beast a Loup-Garou, they spoke from centuries of fear. In France, the werewolf was no idle tale. For generations, courts had condemned men as shapeshifters, burned at the stake for prowling in wolf form. In Burgundy, 2 peasants were executed in 1521 for confessing, under torture, to hunting as wolves. In Germany, Peter Stump was broken on the wheel in 1589, accused of donning a magic belt to become a wolf and slay children. Such stories lingered in every village. The Loup-Garou was a curse as old as the hills, a sinner marked by God, or a soul who had broken Lent, doomed to walk the night as a beast. Parents warned children that the Loup-Garou would come for the disobedient, dragging them into the forest. So when Gévaudan's creature struck, the name rose naturally from every lip. The beast was not merely an animal, it was the old curse made flesh. By the winter of 1765, Gévaudan was a land in mourning. More than 60 victims had fallen, and still the attacks did not cease. Villages emptied at dusk, the fields lay untended, and hunters rode out each morning knowing they might not return. But what had begun as a local terror now became a spectacle for all of France. Parisian newspapers seized upon the story, printing lurid accounts of the beast. Readers in the salons of Versailles, hundreds of miles from the hills of Gévaudan, shuddered at tales of women dragged from their cottages, children snatched from the fields, soldiers slain in their patrols. Each article magnified the panic. Some claimed the beast was no single creature but many, a scourge of wolves sent to punish Gévaudan's people. Others whispered that it was no wolf at all, but a demon in flesh, immune to shot and steel. Reports contradicted one another, yet every account carried the same message. Gévaudan was besieged. The more the hunts failed, the greater the hysteria grew. Each musket misfire, each fruitless chase seemed proof that the beast was more than natural. Its shadow spread not only across the hills, but across the realm of France itself. As the attacks mounted, Gévaudan's terror spilled onto the printed page. Parisian newspapers seized the tale, publishing vivid accounts that blurred fact and rumour. One broadsheet described the beast as a monster with a chest like a lion's and eyes like flame. Another claimed it devoured entire flocks before turning to women and children. Still others insisted it was no wolf at all, but a demon in flesh, impervious to musket shot. Contradictions abounded, Some papers declared multiple beasts roamed the hills, others insisted it was one invincible predator. Yet every account fanned the panic, until readers in Versailles and Paris shuddered at stories from villages they had never seen. The beast became not only a local terror, but a spectacle for the nation. A creature fought as fiercely on paper as in the fields of Gévaudan. In September of 1765, after more than a year of terror, the royal gun-bearer François Antoine at last struck his quarry. Deep in the forest, his party brought down a massive wolf, larger than any most peasants had ever seen. The creature measured over 5 feet in length, its jaws wide, its frame powerful. It was paraded as a trophy. The carcass was stuffed, displayed, and carried before nobles and courtiers. Versailles declared the Beast of Gévaudan slain, and Antoine was showered with rewards. Relief swept the countryside. Prayers of thanksgiving rang out in stone chapels, and for a brief time, Gévaudan dared to breathe again. Yet the shadow was not lifted. Within weeks the attacks resumed. New victims fell, and whispers returned with greater force. The beast still lived. The wolf killed by Antoine, some said, had been but a common predator, a decoy mistaken for the true monster. Others whispered darker things, that the beast could not die, that it had risen again after burial, its hunger unquenched. The royal hunters had claimed their triumph, but the people of Gévaudan knew otherwise. For the howls still echoed across the hills, and the blood of the innocent continued to stain the fields. By the summer of 1767, Gévaudan had suffered for nearly 3 years. The royal hunts had failed, the great wolf of Antoine had been proven a false victory, and the countryside still mourned its dead. It was then that a local man, Jean Chastel, stepped forward. A farmer and veteran hunter, Chastel was not adorned in royal colours, nor did he carry Versailles banners. What he bore instead was patience, a musket, and a prayer. On June 19th, as a hunting party swept through the hills, Chastel waited in silence near the woods of La Bessière. When the beast emerged, he raised his weapon. Some say he recited a prayer, others that he loaded his musket with a blessed silver bullet. He fired, and the creature fell. The carcass was carried through the villages, and for the first time in years, the attacks ceased. To many, the Beast of Gévaudan was dead at last. To others, the tale had only deepened. For the animal Chastel slew was strange, larger than a wolf, but marked by scars as if it had long survived gunfire. Its hide was coarse, its form uncanny. Whether it was truly the beast, or merely the last of a terrorizing pack, the chronicles do not agree. Yet the legend remembers it as the moment silver pierced the shadow. With the death of Jean Chastel's beast, Gévaudan knew peace once more. No further attacks were recorded, and the land, at last, could breathe. Yet the question remained, what had it truly been? Some scholars argue it was nothing more than wolves, emboldened by hunger and poor harvests. A great wolf slain by Antoine, then another by Chastel, together accounting for the deaths. Others insist it was a hybrid, a wolf and mastiff cross, perhaps trained or released by human hand. Its size, its seeming fearlessness of men, its strange hide, all lent credence to the theory of something bred for violence. There are whispers, too, of lions escaped from travelling menageries, or exotic beasts smuggled into France. The shape described, broad chest, tufted tail, coarse coat, does not perfectly match any known predator. And then, beyond scholarship, lies folklore. That it was a loup-garou, a werewolf, the devil's hound sent to punish sin. That its hide deflected musket balls until a prayer and silver pierced it. That it walked upright, and its eyes burned red in the dusk. Perhaps it was all of these things. Perhaps it was none. For the Beast of Gévaudan belongs as much to the realm of memory and myth as it does to history's page. With Jean Chastel's final shot, the attacks ceased. Gévaudan returned to its rhythms, though the memory of terror never faded. But the beast's story did not end in silence. In 1889, more than a century later, Abbé François Fabre-Pourchet compiled the chronicles into a vast volume, over 1,200 pages, recounting every victim, every rumour, every sermon and hunt. His work preserved the beast not only as history, but as legend. To this day, Gévaudan remembers. Statues stand of shepherds and hounds, villages hold festivals, and the name of the beast is carved into the identity of Lozère itself. Tourists walk where blood once stained the fields, and locals still tell the story by firelight. The Beast of Gévaudan is gone, yet its shadow lingers. More than 2 centuries have passed since the hills of Lozère ran red, and still the tale is told, in chronicles, in fireside whispers, in the half-forgotten fears that haunt the edges of night. History records a predator, a wolf or hybrid, brought down by musket and prayer. Folklore remembers a curse, a loup-garou whose eyes burned like embers. Between them lies the truth, hidden in the mists of time, never fully revealed. Perhaps it was a creature of flesh and fang. Perhaps it was something stranger, born from hunger, fear, and the deep-rooted legends of a people who had always known wolves in the dark. But this much is certain. The Beast of Gévaudan remains one of history's most haunting enigmas. A tale where fact and myth entwine, and where the howl of a single creature could shake the faith of a kingdom. And though the beast fell silent in France, its legend did not stay behind. Folklore, like shadow, travels, and the shape it takes in distant lands is often rooted in a legend from long ago and stories of old. But that dear initiate is a tale for another night. And if you have found comfort in these tales from the Ink and Lantern archives, subscribe to join the Society and let us walk together into the long-forgotten corridors of history. Until our next gathering beneath the lantern's glow, rest well, keeper.